Yeah. So, so as I was getting ready to actually get on this Zoom call, of course, I logged into the wrong Zoom link. Uh, my email is popping off as it usually does, and one that popped up is, "Hey, WTOP's road to responsible AI 2024." Okay, yeah, this whole AI stuff is really wild. If you think about it, and uh, you know, uh, everything that we build as human beings, and hopefully to do good, uh, can also be used to do evil, right? And so goes that with AI, right? From a law enforcement perspective, deep fakes, which I really term as a marketing term, right? I prefer to call it, digital manipulation, has been an issue for law enforcement, for probably well over 20 years, right? So in June of 2024, and then in August of 2024, they issued their permanent ideas. The National Center for State Courts came out with their guidance on AI and deepfakes, and and it, like I said, issued more definitive guidance in August, right? So this is really recent, right? The interim report is a quick read. It's only 2 pages. So I'd recommend you download it and read it. It's actually pretty good. The full report, like all other reports that come from nonprofits, is like 15, 20, 30 pages. Don't know if you have time to do that, but the 2-page one isn't bad. So let's see. So from a criminal prosecutor perspective, did I say that right? From a criminal prosecution perspective, that's better. Deep fakes really take 2 forms, right? First, fabricated evidence submitted as authentic evidence, which is a crime, right? And authentic evidence challenged as a deep fake, right? My experience really falls into the latter, right? As a former assistant section chief of the digital evidence section in the FBI, we had a couple of situations with state and local police departments coming to us, having to say, "Listen, the defense is saying that our video is bogus. Can you guys verify it?" In which we were able to do, right? And so, especially in today's world, right? Look at all the police dashboard video, body cameras, all that stuff out there. It's created massive amounts of digital video, right? So it's not hard to believe that some defense attorney is going to make a motion, to dismiss because on the grounds that the police video had somehow been manipulated, right? So when that occurs, it may require that video be reviewed by somebody like the FBI. So the FBI has a unit called the Video Forensics Analysis Unit, by the way, formerly known as FAVIO, right? And so the examiners in that unit analyze video and look for, spatial or visual anomalies or inconsistencies. And those kind of inconsistencies could include things like noise pattern, right? Or color inconsistencies. And it's these things that don't exist in the natural world, but might exist in the digitally manipulated world, is how they make a determination on whether an image or a video is legitimate or it's somehow been manipulated. And that's some police video cam footage. Looks like a woman's getting ready to stab another woman. I remember this case a couple of years ago. It was actually amazing. Um, the So kind of leaving aside, just for a little time anyway, this idea of intentionally doctoring audio, video, or image evidence, which once again is a crime, right? We have the issue of video, audio, image enhancement, right? So digital enhancement has been around for decades, right? But interestingly enough, there's been a couple of court decisions, I think one out in Washington fairly recently, where the courts have rejected the enhancement. Think about that. They've rejected the enhancement. Why? Because the primarily the judge, felt that the enhancement doesn't properly reflect the actual evidentiary condition that it was testified to, right? Very interesting. I've never heard of that until recently, right? So enhancements can be bad. By the way, I really like Bugs Bunny, right? So for all practical purposes, the federal government and several states require that evidence must be real, right? And that the submitting party is required to authenticate it. You would think everybody would say that all evidence has to be real, but in reality, there can be evidence that is admitted into court that is actually like a reenactment. I've seen that. Once again, the federal rules of evidence, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to say it could never be entered, but generally they do not, the federal courts do not want, reenactments. They want the actual evidence of the particular crime, right? Any attorneys out there, if you kind of weigh in and provide additional guidance, that'd be fine, right? So probably, at least as a retired law enforcement person, the most concerning part of deep fakes really involves child exploitation. So PBS did a show on this specific issue, and this issue is massively disturbing. It's something also relatively recent, so you can pull it up and watch it if you like, right? And so this guy here, right? This guy here, his name is Stephen Endereg, right? Software engineer. And in his spare time, created photorealistic images of children engaged in sexually explicit conduct, right? And he's being charged with distributing obscene images of minors, right? So he was arrested in around March of this year. I believe this is the first case of its type where somebody's being charged with essentially a deep fake, right? The reason why this is important, right, is because let me go back. Sorry. So the reason why this is important is because the federal government pretty much is of the opinion that it doesn't make any difference whether it's an actual image or a deep fake, right? It's crime. Now, there have been some people that have pretty much said, well, if it's not really an actual person, how can that be a crime? And I'll talk more about that. I'll talk more about it now, I guess, right? So I only got a couple of minutes. So last week we weren't talking about this particular case involving. I don't want to get too emotional here because these things really bother me. But I was talking to some law enforcement people, right? And indirectly, this case came up, right? And specifically, indirectly, the way it came up was that, so how do AI engines create images or in fact do anything else, right? Well, they do it through their training data, right? Through their learning data, right? And which is real data to include images of people, right? Children. And the AI engine uses that to generate new material. Okay. So how does this apply to to child exploitation? Right. Well, the AI engine had to learn what a child looked like from somewhere, and that somewhere was actual photographs of children. So I was talking to some federal law enforcement people, and that is the logic that they're using behind charging potentially predators like this guy. I mean, he hasn't been proven guilty yet. He's presumed innocent until proven guilty. I understand that. But this is the logic they're using when dealing with deep fakes, right? So that's on the criminal side, right? Like, what about on the civil side, from a civil perspective, right? This is just an opinion. I could be wrong, right? But what I see on the civil side is a massively expanded use of things like private public key exchange for digital signatures, specifically to thwart deep fakes, more specifically in contractual issues, right? I don't know about you, but how many times do you send a PDF or somebody, and it's not a digital signature, but you signed it and you've copied and pasted on a document and you've sent it in, right? Uh, Somebody gets that, no matter how you think you've locked that document, they can still extract data from it, including your signature. How hard it would be for somebody to create a contract, put your name on it, send it off, and now you're fighting a legal battle, right? So I really think that public-private key digital signatures are it's used today, it's used extensively. I think it's going to grow even more important, as well as blockchain, because blockchain definitely has advantages here as well, right? And so although this really isn't a deep fake issue, but since I'm a digital forensics guy, I think it's kind of worth noting that AI is going to have, already has, is going to have even more a positive impact on both cybersecurity and its bastard stepchild, digital forensics, versus the other way around. Anyway, specifically in the areas of identifying weaponized code in near real time and chewing through petabytes and petabytes of data trying to identify evidentiary artifacts, right? That's really another discussion for another day, but I wanted to throw it in, right? So by the way, I asked some of my FBI contacts recently, from the last few days, hey, I realize, I'm on the outside now, but if possible, could I ask you a question? Question is, do you guys currently have cases, individual cases, where you have more than a petabyte worth of data? And the response was, yeah, we have a few. We have more than a few. So think about that. Think about, as human beings, trying to wade through a petabyte of data, trying to find evidentiary items, items remarkable, right? The only way we're going to be able to do that is really with artificial intelligence. So the big joke was, hanging around and talking to my friends, is that, yeah, we're waiting for the software to come one day where we can click the find evidence button. There's the button, you click it, and the evidence pops up, right? Probably not. But I can tell you from my experience in working cases with massive amounts of digital evidence, it's massively draining. Regardless of what type of search engine you have, right? It still comes down to a human being looking at the screen and saying, "Hey, that's interesting. Gee, what is that? Is that do I really know what I'm looking at?" Right? AI can definitely help. Now, having said that, we all have, as citizens of the United States and U.S. persons that are in the United States, we all have a right to face our accusers. Okay? Who's our accuser here? Is it a computer program? Right? So what'll have to happen in the industry is that even if AI finds something, and it's definitely evidentiary, right? A human being's going to have to confirm it, because only a human being can actually get up on a stand and testify. Now, interesting, maybe someday that's not going to be true. But I think that I'll long be dead before that ever really becomes an issue, But yeah, the world of AI, deep fakes, especially how it affects law enforcement, right? Dealing in the world of child exploitation is absolutely massive today, and it's only going to get worse. It's really only going to get worse, right? So I'll close out by once again getting back to my original point that, once again, everything made by man to do good can also be used to do evil. So that's hopefully I prepped the crowd for Jim Jones, because I was the warm-up band. And I will stop sharing my screen.
Oh, thank you, Bob. Wonderful. And as always, fantastically interesting.